bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
And a good undefeated Monday morning, Birds fans. You got Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. Yes, let us start with undefeated. Johnny and I are going to, for the next 2 hours and 4 days after that, talking all the way up till a trip to LA for next week. We will nitpick, we will break down, we will point out things that the Eagles did not do well and or should be worried about going forward. But we always have to come back to 4-0 is 4-0, okay? There's only two teams in the NFL that have started that way. It's the Eagles and the Niners, and no one else is undefeated. So remember that. That should be the number one theme all week long. They're undefeated. But there were a couple things that they could have done better yesterday. And yes, we'll emphasize both the positive and the negative. Johnny Mack, when you walked out of Lincoln Financial Field after all your post-game work and being on the JAKIB Media post-game show and everything you had to get done, got in the car to head back over to South Jersey, what was the thing that was foremost in your mind?
Jake Elliott's really good.
That's a good one.
That's number one. Yeah, that guy. I watched him kick a 72-yard field goal in practice this week.
72?
72, yeah. Now, it was with and I explained this to people, it was a tee. He was off by himself. There's no rush. There's no holder. There's no
right.
But he banged one through. That's pretty stinking impressive, Jody. Any way you look at it. So, I mean,
and give me the measurables on Jake. Well,
yeah, Jake's not big. I don't have him in front of me, but
5'11".
I can't imagine he's 5'11", maybe 180. But yeah, packs a lot of power in that little body. Braden Mann's very small too, by the way.
Yeah, he's a little guy, certainly compared to Sippus.
Yeah, certainly 5'9", 167 is Jake Elliott. Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
He's not 170 pounds.
Pretty impressive what kind of power he can generate. To the point, you're kicking a 54-yard. It's around the NFL as a whole too. I mean, these kickers have gotten so good, and so back in the day, that used to be a big deal. Now I'm like, he's walking up there. All right, I'm like game over pretty much, and right down the middle. So that's number one, Jake Elliott. But yeah, I mean, it was sloppy, and the old cliches tend to be cliches for a reason, and one of them is division games tend to be closer than maybe you might expect, and that comes true a lot of the times. And certainly, I think Sam Howell played very well. I think they made the overcorrection after the bad game in Buffalo. So I want to give him credit as well. I think he did a really good job for the most part. Young quarterback, but and then the Eagles made some questionable decisions, and whether it's scoring too soon. Look, if you're playing Patrick Mahomes, I'll listen to the scoring too soon stuff a little bit more when you try to manipulate the game. I think the bigger issue there was AJ getting the penalty for taunting, which gave essentially Washington, I believe, returned it to the 36. So they got 11 more yards than they should have
Right.
on a typical touchback. And that started things. And then ultimately, ironically, I think the touchdown was 10 yards. So, on the final play of the game. So that was a big impact. You got to tighten up on that kind of stuff. But AJ took responsibility. You can't do that. Taunting, he and Forbes were going back and forth pretty much the whole game. Ole Miss guy versus Mississippi State guy. Maybe that played into it. But can't do that stuff, especially a veteran player. And then, Reed Blankenship in overtime. Washington won the toss. They ran a play, got nothing on first down. Then they ran a nice little crossing pattern. You could see that Eric Bieniemy influence from Kansas City with this team, by the way. A lot of crossing patterns. Looked like it was going to develop, and Reed just shoots in, stops it for a 4 or 5 yard gain, whatever it was. And he got hurt. He got banged up on the play, stayed in. And I don't know. You got a better look. I still got to watch because it's, I don't know if McLaurin got in. I don't know if that was a primetime game. You have more camera angles. Marcus Mariota, I know, had his best play of the season, getting his head in the way of the one angle. Good job from Marcus. But boy, it's funny because I always say the same thing with Devontae, with good receivers. Devontae always gets his feet in. I don't know how, but he always gets his toes in. Same thing when McLaurin caught that. I said, "That's Terry McLaurin." I mean, let's watch this again. And whether he landed on Reed's hand or wrist or whatever, the fact that he was there to make it more difficult. If he wasn't there, he was getting in easily.
Probably was, yep.
Bro, nice catch, and who knows what happens from there. So those are my main takeaways. Reed Blankenship in overtime, and obviously Jake, and I know people are going to nitpick about the coaching, but often, boy, man, people get so in the weeds with X's and O's and 3rd and 11, and, like they're the first team in the history of the world to run a draw play on 3rd and 11. Nick Sirianni's got this team. I would say managing people is a big part of the job. They're 4-0, as you mentioned. I'm glad you started with that, Jody. There's 32 teams in this league. We're down to 2 that are 4-0. Everybody, who was the flavor of the week last week, coming off 70 points? The Miami Dolphins. Oh, Miami this, Miami. They get blitzed by 4 touchdowns. The first 2 weeks, it was Dallas. And how good is Dallas? And I was in that category. Boy, they look really good. They look really good. And they lose to Arizona. And they overcorrect, and they look like themselves the next week. To be able to win these games in this league and just find ways to win games, that's not given enough credit because it is really difficult. And we're up to 21 of 22 when Jalen Hurts is the starting quarterback.
And, oh, by the way, Jalen Hurts in the passing game came back yesterday. For those of you who were panicked for the first 3 weeks, oh, my God, where's the passing? Where's Jalen Hurts? Mr. Runner-Up MVP. Doesn't look like a runner-up MVP to me. He did yesterday. He threw the ball very well in the Eagles passing game. Was a big reason they hung in the game, eventually won the game. On your McLaurin play on the sideline, I still couldn't tell. And I agreed with the announcer. Moose Johnston was on a call yesterday. If they had called it inbounds, I don't know that there was enough to overturn it. Because they called it out of bounds, there wasn't enough definitive evidence to overturn it. It was right. It was a matter of inches. The top of his cleat being on the white or off the white was that close. And you are 100% right. If Reed Blankenship isn't there, I firmly believe McLaurin gets a call. That he gets his feet down because Reed was that close. His hand may have kept him from being able to step inbounds rather than out of bounds. And that, of course, was a very huge play. But it's a good thing that Reed made that play overall because I thought yesterday the Eagles secondary was not good. Now, I know they were shorthanded, and they had 2 scratches before the game in Evans and Brown, and they elevated McMullen, who did nothing but play special teams. So the DBs were out there on an island by themselves yesterday. I don't know if they ran out of gas. Washington moved the ball damn well in the first period up and down the field. I thought it was a less than stellar effort from the Eagles' defensive backfield. I thought Darius Slay got abused yesterday. Now, if it was more zone coverage and it wasn't his responsibility, I'm sure Darius will let us know, because Darius doesn't like when you point out that he gets beat. And it may very well be the case, but it seemed to me they went into his area of the zone a lot yesterday to take advantage. So it was not a great defensive secondary effort across the board yesterday, Johnny Mac.
No, you're right. And that secondary is a problem with how it's, they got to figure out. And it doesn't have anything to do with Bradbury or even Slay, because I agree with you. And I don't, Slay, a lot of zone coverage, and they were blowing some zones yesterday. But people are going after Josh Jobe. And yesterday they were going after Terrell Edmonds as well. And they should.
Edmonds
that's
took
what
some
teams.
Stupid penalties.
Yeah. And that's what teams should do. And that's what they're doing. And, the end of the game in regulation, Sam made a mistake with 5 seconds left. He threw short of the end zone. You almost would have hoped Reed made that play as well. You almost would have let him, hey, catch the football, and the clock's going to run out, and the game's going to be over right there. And then whether Bieniemy got in his headset and said, look, this ball's got to go to the end zone. And they said, all right, where's Jobe? And we're going to throw it there. And that's what they did, basically. And they were able to tie the game. By the way, Ron Rivera's got to go for 2 there. Got to go for 2.
What happened to Riverboat Ron?
Yeah, that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. You got to go for 2 there. And he was talking after the game, talking about, well, the guys were gassed. It was a long drive. Well, if you're gassed, guess what? The defense is gassed.
The Eagle defense should be more gassed than your offense. Most of you are drive blocking straight ahead.
Yeah, and not only have the adrenaline rush of time, not time because you're a point behind, but you score, you have a chance to win the game. That's all offensive tilted right there, as far as the long drive. So I don't agree with Ron Rivera. Eagles are the better team, the more talented team. They're playing at home. Everything says go for 2 right there and try to steal the win. And who knows what happens if they do that. Obviously, the Eagles could stop them, but they were on their heels. That's the way I would have went. And I guarantee you Ron Rivera's rethinking that today, but there's nothing you can do from his standpoint. But, yeah, the secondaries – Josh is okay, and he's improving, and I'm sure he'll get better. But they need to figure out that nickel spot, and maybe it's just Sidney Brown. Maybe when he returns, you just put him there because you're affecting 2 positions. I said it from day one. Remember, Bradbury's fine. He's doing a fine job. I didn't love the matchup with Curtis Samuel because he's very quick, and he caught 7 of 8 targets.
He had no choice yesterday when you don't even have another option.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to be in the slot. Bradbury had to play in the slot yesterday. There wasn't a choice.
Yeah. But and that's what I said. He caught most of the passes thrown his way, but only for 51 yards. So he didn't kill you, and he had the jet sweep. But long term, I mean, he's one of the best outside corners in football. It's a more important position. You got to keep them outside. You pay money for those players for a reason. Outside corners get paid more than slot corners for a reason. It doesn't make any sense to me. And whether it's trade market outside the organization or just Sidney Brown, they gotta settle that down.
Let me ask you this, because we talked about it plenty. And you brought it up here on Birds 365. You were surprised when in camp they cross-trained Bradbury at the slot position. which, like you noted, what's going on here? You got one of the best outside corners in the business. Why would you be moving him inside? And I think he's athletic enough to play there. Usually a guy his size, you go, yeah, that's just not a good idea because he's just that big. You need a smaller, quicker guy to play inside. But you can be 6'2" and that quick and be able to play there. And I think Bradbury's damn close to that. But if you're going to do cross training, you're going to be looking at worst case scenario. Oh, by the way, worst case scenario came up and bit you in the rear end. Why didn't they cross train Job there? Is Job completely unable to play in there? I don't know that he's any more of a reach than Bradbury would be. Why didn't they say, well, if we're going to cross train somebody, let's cross train a young guy rather than a guy who's already established himself as a Pro Bowl level outside cornerback?
Well, I think it has to do with his abilities as a player. I mean, he can handle it.
Okay.
Whereas, Josh is still trying to learn outside cornerback. It's natural. But the same thing with Eli Ricks and Mekhi Gardner and guys like that. They're trying, they're young players trying to learn their main position. And you see it with Sidney Brown and, maybe, from Sidney's standpoint, he played more near the line of scrimmage than back in too high. So maybe he's a little bit more comfortable, even though he technically wasn't playing slot. He's a little bit more comfortable near the line of scrimmage than he actually is. He barely ever played, single high or cover two or type of that in college. So he's a little bit different in the fact that he's got a comfort level. But yeah, I mean, Josh is trying to learn outside corner, and then you're going to throw that on his plate. You might have to at some points, because if you start getting, and they've already been through now Mike Evans and Terry McLaurin, but this is every week in the NFL.
Right.
And
this week it'll be, and nobody knows his name yet.
Yeah.
We'll learn it real fast.
Yeah.
Puka Nacua, who is in the top 5 in the NFL in yards receiving, in his over 500 yards in his first 4 games in the NFL. So yeah, they got somebody that they got to worry about coming up this Sunday.
Yeah, and Matthew, I saw Matthew Stafford got banged up, so that might help the Eagles. But yeah, if Matthew's healthy, he could sling it. And he's smart, and he's played forever, and he's going to attack who he needs to attack. So this might be, depending on his health, this might be a bigger test than maybe it looked on the schedule to begin the season. But yeah, they're going to keep getting tested until they figure that out. And people are going last play of the game, regulation, not last play of the game, last play of regulation. I mean, they just found Job and went after him, and they were going to throw it. And, if he made a play, but they did it on purpose.
Give credit to Sam Howell. That was a pretty nice throw.
It was.
He slammed it into a very tight window. It wasn't like Job was blatantly off in coverage. He was pretty close. That was just a really nice play.
And there were like 3 defenders in the air. It was a great throw. I'm not trying to say that, but it was evident that they were trying to identify where to throw the football. And that's going to continue until, he proves that he can hold up to a certain level. And, this is all nitpicking because as you started the show, 4-0.
4-0.
I mean, 4-0.
I got one more nitpick I want to get into. It's more than a nitpick. It was pretty bad yesterday. Before we get Jeff Carr up here, our first guest. I thought the secondary played poorly yesterday. But you know what? I think the secondary played better than the defensive line. Because expectations are expectations. And when you're down as many guys as the Eagles were in the secondary going into the game, you're playing backups. You're playing guys who haven't had enough experience in the league. The Eagles' defensive line is supposed to be their best unit. Who was it from the NFL Network who said that the Eagles' defensive line was the best unit in all of football? Not just the Eagles.
Yeah, Bucky Brooks. Yeah.
Bucky Brooks. The Eagles' defensive line. And for the first 3 games of the season, he was looking very much right. Where'd they go yesterday, Johnny Mac? They got pushed around by a mediocre offensive line of the Washington Commanders. And I know Hassan Reddick got his first sack, which is nice. Glad he got the cast off. He did nothing. Brandon Graham did nothing. Derek Barnett his agent wants to be able to check out what's out. Please find out what's out there on the trade market for Derek Barnett. How about 3 cans of Bud? I would do that tomorrow for Derek Barnett. Somehow he made 18 appearances. I didn't see him on my screen at all yesterday. The big dogs from the middle, from Georgia, who had been stone cold dominant the first 3 games of the season, didn't do a whole hell of a lot yesterday. Where'd the Eagles defensive line go yesterday, John?
Well, I don't think it was splashy, but I do think, they're still impacting the game. I know,
all those
Washington.
pressures slowed Sam Howell down to
Well,
his first,
no, but I
game
mean,
in his NFL career.
To quote JG, everyone's favorite, rush and cover and rush. So we're just talking about the secondary. I thought they impacted on certain. It wasn't as dominant. I mean, 107 yards rushing, which to expect them to be under 50 every week wasn't going to happen. The yards per rush were still under 4. So to me, that's effective. There are a couple plays like Jalen Carter doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but a couple plays he hurried and got things out of there. Reddick looked better without the cast. Josh Sweat looked good. I think Fletcher played a good game, but it wasn't spectacular. So I get everybody. You mentioned expectations. Yeah, that's a big part of it. Everybody expects them to be the steel curtain or the purple people eaters every week. That's not realistic. And I said coming into the game, I said it on this show, I said it on Football 24/7. That's what happens in this league. Teams overcorrect. And I thought Washington was going to come in with a good plan to at least, try to help that offensive line as much as possible, get the football out of Sam Howell's hand. But I was impressed by Sam Howell. I think he played well. I don't think, and he was sacked 5 times. Now, Nicholas Morrow had 3 of them. He had 4 career
and he didn't
sacks.
play on the defensive line.
No, but, he's not getting sacks by himself. Nicholas Morrow isn't Lawrence Taylor. All right, he's getting sacks because people are worried about Jalen Carter. And one was, I got to look at all 3. The one was a late blitz where the I think it was Carter, impacted the play. And he came around, looped around, and got the sack. So, I mean, they're impacting guys like that. He came in. Look, Nick Morrow's playing great. I think he's one of the underrated stories considering what happened. But he had 4 career sacks, and I think it was 3,600 snaps. He has 3 in one game. Again, he didn't turn into Lawrence Taylor. He's getting 3 sacks because of that defensive front.
Understood. But again, he's Nicholas Morrow, and these other guys expectations are higher. I thought they played poorly yesterday, the defensive line. The linebackers played great. Guys who we don't expect. Cunningham had 13 tackles, somewhere thereabouts. Now, too many of them too far downfield that when they did run the ball and he had to make a tackle down the field, rather than 2 yards, it was 5 or 6 yards down the field. Yards per carry of the Washington running back, same as the Eagles.
Well,
yeah, for the same amount of yards. If they outrushed the Eagles, that doesn't. I'm not putting that down as a win for the Eagles defense.
Well, the Washington. I mean, Chase Young gave Jordan Mailata fits. Cam Jurgens got hurt. That Washington front is legit. And yeah, same thing. If you expect DeAndre Swift to end the season with 6.8 yards per carry, guess what? That ain't happening. And he was down to 4, and he still had some nice little runs against probably the best defensive front the Eagles are going to see all season. So, yeah, I mean, I thought the interior played well on the Eagles defensive line. And I think the edge guys Reddick was a little bit better. Although, look, I don't think Reddick was playing poorly. He just wasn't finishing. Sweat had trouble in Tampa against Tristan Wirfs, but it's Tristan Wirfs. Every other game he's played well. Yeah, so I don't think they were as bad as I'm more concerned about the secondary. Let's put it that way.
I thought they bought other than the linebackers. The linebackers came up big for the Eagles.
Yeah,
yesterday.
I'm not
I
as
don't think they
competent
were
in
good on the
linebackers
front end or the back
as
end.
you are. I'm definitely not as competent in the linebackers as you are. Yeah,
they kind of saved the day yesterday for the Eagles because the rest of the defense for me was not very good. All right, Jeff Kerr, been waiting patiently. We waited for him. Now he waits for us. Let him join the party. Jeff Kerr from CBSSports.com up with us next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Birds 365 on a day after the Eagles extended their undefeated season. That's right, undefeated 4-0. Lots to break down. We'll get Jeff Kerr in here to help us do just that. But just keep coming back every once. Oh, they're 4-0. Oh, they're 4-0. Let me remember, they're 4-0. They are 4-0. We've got questions, but they are 4-0. Jeff Kerr, what was the biggest question after yesterday's game in your mind for the Eagles? Jeff frees up on us. We make him wait. And then
Darius Slade told me after the. It's what Darius Slade told me after the game yesterday. It just seems like they're inconsistent week to week on certain things. Like,
freezing up. See if Jeff maybe can restart his computer or something.
Something along those lines. Because
IT.
It's an IT issue. Somehow we'll learn to deal with the IT issue.
It was going to say, but yeah, inconsistency. Darius Slade telling them that. I'd agree with that. And part of that is the moving parts. I mean, in the secondary, when you have injuries and you have new players in there, especially with this particular scheme, which is way too reliant on communication on the back end, I think, Yeah, I've been talking about that since day one with the big band. It's something I don't like, especially with younger players, because they tend to make more mental errors when it comes to zone coverage and these exotic, you know, post snap looks that they like to present. So I agree with that part of it. But yeah, long term, even Justin Evans, we talked, didn't play, obviously wasn't able to go. When he's able to return, and Sidney Brown, who I did mention, when he's able to return, I'm not sure those guys are the answers at those two positions. The second safety position opposite Reed and slot corner. The answers might not be on this roster, so this might be the issue that we're focused on, Jody, throughout the season, especially as teams get to now. You know, the Eagles. I mentioned Stafford's injury yesterday. He fought through it, but evidently he was not healthy at all. So we'll see how things progress this week. The Jets, as you know, Zach Wilson looked a hell of a lot better last night than he has in the past, but he's not Aaron Rodgers. We thought we were going to see that test, not nearly. And then you get Miami, which is going to be a test, despite how poorly they played against Buffalo. I think that is going to be a test. Especially with those receivers they have. So, I mean, I think that's going to be the one issue where we say, all right, what's going on in the secondary?
And by the way, John, and you're kind of hinting at it, and we've talked about it before, but you just said in the first segment that player might not be on the roster. Well, if you're going to go out and trade for somebody, and Howie's been very good at picking up guys in season, making the trade necessary, leading up to the deadline, adding a key piece. Well, you're adding a piece and going to ask him to do something more than you usually ask a guy to do. Some guys you just get offensive line, you get them, you give them 20 minutes with Stoutland, boom, they're ready to go. Putting a D-back into the middle of a Fangio communication-based defense is something that's going to be rather difficult, because a lot of it is feel, a lot of it is communication, a lot of it is doing what you know your teammate's going to do. Oh, by the way, the guy shows up in midstream and say, you plug him in and expect an upgrade at that position. John, if they went out and got the best cover safety in the NFL, the best D-back to play in the slot, might take them some time to get there. And by the way, you're not looking for time. You're looking for immediate results when you make a deal in season for a guy to come in and play for you.
Well, I think it's got to be a certain type. And we saw it last year with CJ. I mean, we were all saying, well, how's he going to pick this up? He picked it up pretty quick. But he's a savvy player. It's got to be Bradbury-like player. He's a savvy player. It's got to be a player that already has that sort of knowledge and ability and coverage. I don't think it's going to be a young player who's unproven. I think that's the kind of player that breaks down in this defense. And hopefully we get Jeff back. I see him popping up. So when he's ready, there we go. Jeff
there he
Kerr,
is. Yeah, there we go. Tried an ulterior method here. So.
All right. Nice. So you're mentioning Slay and sort of the lack of consistency. With the secondary, Jeff, I think it's understandable a little bit because of all the moving parts. And I was talking to Jody about the communication and the Fangio scheme. That's what it's based on. And boy, if you throw in a bunch of new guys, it kind of looks ugly at times. Isn't that sort of baked into it?
Yeah, I would think so, John. So, I mean, look at all the different pieces they've had on this defense since week 1? I mean, who would have thought Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham would be their linebackers at this point in the season? The guy they cut and the guy that they signed in August. And now you got James Bradbury in the slot, and people are questioning that move. That's the best option, because are we really going to go with Mario Goodrich here? No. So you got to deal with what you got. And Josh Jobe on the outside is one of those pieces. I mean, the only constant on this defense right now is the pass rush. And luckily, they just haven't had any major injuries there. And Hassan Reddick seems to be fully at 100% because he has sacked yesterday and he's got that club off.
Real quick before you jump in, Jody, because you mentioned that with Mario Goodrich. What are we going to do? Go with Mario Goodrich? Well, why is he here, Jeff?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm because I'm in the camp of James Bradbury's an all-pro outside corner. He gets paid $13 million to play outside corner. I don't want to affect two positions. And if Mario Goodrich isn't good enough to play next man up mentality, Nick Sirianni, why is he here?
I agree with you. I don't know why he's here. When he was a healthy scratch last week, I'm like, whose roster spot is he taking? Why is he on this team right now? And I didn't see the snap count numbers for today, John. How many snaps did he end up playing yesterday?
That would be a 0. He played special teams only. He and McMullen both were active as defensive backs and didn't get a snap in a DB. Both of them played special teams only.
I agree. Then why is he here? Why is he taking up a roster spot right now? Do you really need a slot corner if you're moving Bradbury in? I mean, I guess he's here because if Bradbury gets hurt, but who's really going to claim him? No one claimed Nicholas Morrow, and look how well he's playing. So.
Yeah, and you also have Ringo and Ricks who aren't playing.
It's
at corner. So you don't need 3 corners that don't play defense. I mean, Ringo is a big impactful player on special teams so far. And he's obviously got the ceiling as a potential prospect. And, Ricks and Goodrich, I mean, if they can't play and they're not impactful on special teams, what the heck are they here for? I mean, you got to churn in cornerbacks that can play if you have these injury issues.
This is what I'm wondering. Was Sidney Brown's absence playing a role in this? Because it seemed like, at least to my knowledge, he was going to be the backup slot corner before the hamstring injury.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So maybe.
And he might be the starting slot corner when he's healthy.
Maybe when he's healthy, that changes things and Bradbury goes back to the outside.
Yeah.
Probably. Well, I don't know that. I think that's what we're all rooting for, but I'm not sure that's what.
Yeah, it'll probably be piecemeal, but hopefully he wins the job as the season moves on. I think that's the hope, but it's a hope, Jody. And Howie's the one who said hope is not a strategy. Yeah.
All right. Now we're in the midst of a season, and they're 4-0, and that's a good thing, and that outweighs everything else. But if we're taking a step back, 2,000-foot look, what would be best for the Eagles' future for Brown to be his natural position? Slot corner or safety? Is he playing slot corner just because they have a desperate need right now? I'm not saying the Eagles should make their decision as to how they should use him based on the future, but I'm just generally asking, where do you think Brown is best served to play for next year and going forward, safety or slot corner?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the long-term position is safety, but for 2023, I think they need him to play slot cornerback right now. If you're not going to use Mario Goodrich, you're not using your third-team slot corner. Eli Ricks can't play the slot. I think he's strictly an outside guy. So I think right now to get Sidney Brown on the field with Terrell Edmonds, with Reed Blankenship, I think the best fit for him right now would be the slot, and then you can get Bradbury on the outside, and you can have Josh Jobe as a valuable number 3 corner. I want to point this out too. Before Josh Jobe gave up that touchdown, I thought he actually had a pretty good game yesterday, until the last second touchdown. But overall, like, Jobe has been fine, but he's definitely a guy that teams are picking on because they know that's the weakness.
Yeah. They're targeting, and we haven't seen that big time. Well, we did a little bit with Kirk Cousins, and he put up big numbers, but it was, they were down 20 points. Matthew Stafford, and he got hurt, as I was mentioning to Jody. I don't know how healthy he's going to be. And then you have to wait until Tua. But people are going to pick on Josh Jobe until he proves they can't pick on him. That's just the nature of this game. And the Eagles obviously are going to be tested down the road with the Mahomes and the Josh Allens of the world. So they got to get this thing fixed and fixed pretty quickly. But to Jody's point, Sidney Brown's going to be the safety. Remember, even if they want to move on from Avonte Maddox because of all the injury issues, they have Isaiah Rodgers. They already signed him, coming back from the gambling suspension. So they have a plan long term in the slot, but short term, it's I think it's Sidney Brown or bust. And then I start, Jody mentioned, why not cross-train Job? You mentioned, well, Ricks is an outside corner, which I agree with, and Goodrich can't play. What are we doing here? It's nitpicking because they're 4-0, but it's a legitimate nit to pick, I think.
All right, so let me further pick the nit. I was making my coffee this morning, Jeff, and I looked at the milk that I was adding to it, and sure enough, Derek Barnett's face was on the carton of milk that I had. And I wondered, did he even play yesterday? And I had to go double check. And, oh, yeah, he got 18 snaps. 18 snaps. I thought he didn't play. I thought maybe he was a healthy scratch. Maybe they didn't announce it. Maybe I missed it. He was actually out there on the field for 18 snaps. And after the game, there's a rumor going around that his agent is requesting the ability to seek a trade for Derek Barnett. I have one word. Please seek a trade. Please see what's out there for you. Please tell us someone is willing to give you 2 milk cartons with your face on it, as long as the milk isn't spoiled, Derek Barnett, and we'll see if we can get something like that done. Why is he still getting snaps, Jeff?
That's a good question, Jody. I didn't realize he ended up playing 18 snaps yesterday. I saw him on the field. I didn't see him do much when he was on the field.
Did nothing. Oh, nothing. That'd be a
By
big
the way,
mistake.
who played well? I forgot to mention. I have to admit, Brandon played well.
He had a great game yesterday.
I should have mentioned that because he was.
Brandon, I actually thought Nolan Smith had a good game at first look. I thought he was.
I don't agree with you there.
Well,
he got pushed
maybe I'm
around
watching a couple plays there. I'm not talking about the play where he got beat on the pass coverage.
Well, yeah, they have drop and cover. Well, that's just dumb. That's not Nolan's small.
You got to rush Nolan Smith there.
Yeah.
But besides that, I mean. Yeah, I do agree with you, though. I don't know why Derek Barnett really is playing as much as he is. I know the Eagles value him, but, you can't.
Now, overall, Jeff, what did you think of the defensive line? Because Jody, expectations are off the charts for this group.
Oh, they're absolutely.
Jody was harsh. I don't think they were bad. I just don't think they were as dominant as usual.
I give them a B-. I mean, they have 5 sacks. I mean, I guess everybody.
No. 3 of those sacks were
Nick Morrow
from the linebacker position.
But as I pointed out to Jody, I mean, Nick Morrow ain't getting those sacks because he's Lawrence Taylor. He's getting those sacks because the guys up front are making it easy for him.
Exactly.
I didn't think they played poorly, but I don't think they played up to the expectation. I think Jody's right there. And if people are going to expect him to be the steel curtain every week, that they might be a little bit disappointed. But
that's how I would describe me yesterday. Disappointed in the effort of the defensive line.
Yeah, I thought they played well. Am I crazy?
No, I don't think they're crazy. I mean, look, they have 5 sacks. They had, I think, 17, 18 pressures. I got to double check those numbers again, but I mean, they were getting the Sam Howell's a mobile quarterback. I hope.
Yeah, he's
more
mobile than people think.
Yeah,
I think
is.
The Eagles were surprised by that.
I think they were too. And if you watch a couple of Sam Howell's games, you throw away the Buffalo game because he's been more of the quarterback that's played the other games outside of Buffalo. That was an anomaly for Sam Howell, but. Yeah, I thought they played fine. It wasn't anything off the charts, but again, I think I agree with you, Jody and John. Expectations are really, really high for this defensive line just because they got 70 sacks last year and because they were able to do this. But this is the same expectations that, John Fagan's not a good defensive coordinator. Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
No, they gave up 31 points to a team that the week before had scored 3. If not the defensive line and who we putting it on. It's all on the secondary, but they gave a 31
I think
points
it's more on the secondary from my standpoint. No, but they didn't play up to their usual standard. Well, I can't even say usual. 3-game standard, small sample size. Like I bring up Miami, you point out, like if you look at one game and say, all right, they were awful in Buffalo, but that's not probably what they're going to be. Similar to Miami scoring 70 points and then they get beat by 4 touchdowns. That's sort of like this league. And then believe me, Miami's going to play better. I don't even know who they're playing next week. but I guarantee they're going to play better.
I still say Eric Bieniemy's offensive scheme favors against John Fagan, Vic Fangio, Sean Desai, that type of scheme, just because he can get receivers open past the numbers, and if you don't get home, he's going to pick you apart. That was one thing that scared me about the game yesterday. Eric Bieniemy just seems to have that defense's number.
It's all crossing routes, man. So you can
is.
see Andy. You can see Andy in that offense with a lot of what they do. Obviously, they don't have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill back in the day. But now that you brought up the coaching, I got a big nit to pick with Ron Rivera. Why aren't you going for 2, Jeff Kerr?
I was thinking the same thing. Oh, but didn't you hear, John? The offense was gas. Well, don't you think the defense is gas?
That's exactly what I said. Yeah, I'm ripping that nickname off him. He can no longer be called Riverboat Ron. I mean, everything says go for 2 and try to steal the win right there. I think that's awful. That's an awful decision. The Eagles are the better team, the more talented team. They're at home. You got to try to steal the game.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, why doesn't this guy just try to end it right now? If he loses, he loses. They got nothing to lose. They weren't supposed to win that game anyway. They were huge underdogs.
Yeah.
All right, another nit to pick. And again, my apology, Eagle fans, because remember, they're 4-0. 4-0. But it doesn't mean we can't point out some things that we question a little bit. 11 penalties for 81 yards?
Oh, yeah.
Are we still going to go with the narrative that less is more in preseason and prepping for games and practicing, non-practicing? Pretty damn sloppy. And it wasn't their young guys all making the mistakes. Oh, they're still learning to play in the National Football League. It was guys who have been around. And Dickerson, I love him, but Lane Johnson has perfected the leave before the ball is snapped move. He does it all the time. And it's maybe a quarter of a second. But when they give you the slow motion replay, you see that he goes before the ball is actually snapped. Landon Dickerson isn't as good at it. He gets caught. He goes early, gets caught, he gets flagged. He actually, I think, beat one or two yesterday that he could have gotten flagged.
Now, there was another one where he left way early on the tush
Also,
push.
can I point out how much horse shit that is? You're calling a penalty, an offsides penalty on a tush push when literally Deron Payne's helmet is over the football.
Well, there are like 3 guys offsides. I saw the video of that. I'm going to try to get it and post it again. But boy, he left. To say he left early is being disingenuous. I mean, he was 3 yards down the field, and he's a powerful guy. But Jeff's right as well. There were like 3 Washington players offside where you could see the helmet. But I will say about the officiating, the penalties, and I think it was Bob Groats, our friend, who brought it up. Ronald Torbert was the referee. His crew calls a lot of penalties. I mean, statistically, and that held up. But the individual ones, like the AJ Brown penalty, to me was the biggest penalty. You can't do that.
It was a stupid penalty for him.
Yeah. So individually, I agree with you. There's some sloppiness, Jody. But overall, I mean, if Torbert's out there, there were 18 penalties. Washington got called for 8, I think. There's a lot of penalties when he's out there.
Yeah, because of Torbert and that crew, a first quarter that went I felt it went 20, 25 minutes. All of a sudden, that game took 3 hours and close to 4 hours because of Torbert.
Yeah, sometimes the crew is just, they're going to call some penalties and you got to deal with it. But you can't, the taunting stuff, I mean, that's simple to avoid. Obviously, he was getting into it with Emmanuel Forbes. But why is Washington traveling Forbes with AJ Brown?
I guess that's their best man cover corner, but I don't agree with it.
I mean, he plays less than St. Just, who's bigger. He's a better athlete, but I just don't think he can play yet. He's a young corner. Maybe he's got some upside, but AJ was beating him like a drum, and they're following him around. I'm like, what are they doing?
I felt like the game. What was it? Was it 2015 they had Byron when the Eagles had Byron Maxwell on? Was it Julio and they just let him get picked apart all game long?
Well, when the Eagles signed Byron Mack, he was the best, zone corner in football. Cover 3, Seattle.
Play man.
Yeah, and they haven't played man. Yeah, I mean, there's some. Yeah, I don't know. All right, Nick Sirianni. Let's question him. 3rd and 11, draw play to Kenny Gainwell. Do you think he was protecting Jalen Hurts on the throw? Because that looked to me like he checked to that throw, and people have an issue with scoring too soon. I don't have an issue with it. I'm like, maybe if it's Patrick Mahomes, as I mentioned earlier to Jody, all right, then I'll start thinking about manipulating the clock. If I got a chance to score against the Washington Commanders and Sam Howell, I got to score and put it on my defense. I didn't have a problem with that with Nick Sirianni. Others did. Where are you, Jeff?
I was confused on the play, but I understood the ramifications of it. Does it feel like to you, John, they don't really trust Jalen Hurts' decision making in the red zone right now?
I thought he was the one who checked to it. I don't know, but I thought that was his decision. I thought that was Jalen's decision. Now that wasn't a red zone play.
No, that wasn't a red zone play. But it feels like overall when I was watching that game, he's not as throwing as many passes in the red zone as he did last year. Maybe that's just a different offense. I don't know, but
well, I think anytime you run a 3rd and 11 draw play, you're trying to fool the defense. I mean, they're hardly the first team that runs on 3rd and long. And they didn't fool them, and it didn't go anywhere. But, so, all right, maybe you want to throw it on 3rd and 11, but they have had success on that play in the past. But everybody's hyper-focused on Swift. He's got to get the ball at all times. They're going to run that poor guy into the ground if he gets the ball all the time. I mean, somebody else has got to
I think they've been managing him well the last 2 games.
He only had 14 carries yesterday.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, it's, he doesn't have this long history of being, Derrick Henry, 250 touches, or Ezekiel Elliott. It's about long term, not only short term. He had 28 carries in week 2, I believe. That's a lot. I don't know. I don't have a problem with them managing the touches, I guess, a little bit.
And John, on the should they or shouldn't have they scored the touchdown that gave the Commanders a chance to go back down the field, you're basing it as much on the opposition, saying it's not Patrick Mahomes, it's Sam Howell, and Sam Howell did just that, march it down the field and stuck it into the end zone on the last play.
With the help of A.J. Brown.
There is 20/20 hindsight. Yes, understood that A.J. helped them out with the tape. Here's why I think it was a bad play call. And if it was Hurts checking to it, it's on Hurts rather than either the play caller and or the head coach. Whoever decided in the moment to do just that, throw the ball down the field and score a touchdown. Here's what I'm basing my decision on more than anything else. If Jalen Hurts did it, then Jalen Hurts has got to know that, and he's got to handle it. I got Jake Elliott. If I got a questionable field goal kicker, if I don't know that my kicker is going to go out and bang home the game-winning field goal, then yeah, I'm going to try and score a touchdown. I've got one of the most consistent kickers in the NFL who, as we pointed out in the first hour, goes right 50 plus, doesn't matter, goes right down the middle. I've got him. I'm going to give him the chance to win the game rather than open up the possibility. And you're right. It was not a great odds possibility. Sam Howell's going to march the ball down the field. And if A.J. Brown doesn't give him the extra 10 yards, he probably doesn't. But so I'm playing a Jake Elliott. I'm going to make my decision based on my team rather than the opposition there. And that's why I think it was a bad decision.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we dropped Jeff Kerr. So hopefully maybe Jeff can come back, but maybe not. We held him for a long time. But yeah, I mean, look, if they would have ran out the clock, but if you don't get a first down and all of a sudden then they can come back and they only need a field goal, I see both sides of the fence. The best case scenario is always drain the clock and walk off, right? You know, I mean, you don't give the other team an opportunity. But I see too many teams try to get cute with that kind of stuff, and they end up not scoring. And even if they get the field goal, then you give the other team an easier chance, and they go down and score a touchdown. From the Eagles' perspective, they're a really good team. And, you know, I think they take a chance to score, and they score. And again, if AJ doesn't taunt, it's probably not even in the conversation. They're not getting in a position to tie the game. So many things happen. As I said, the play before, if Reed Blankenship, you got to be a real situational master to realize, all right, he's going to catch this ball at the 1.5 yard line. The clock's going to run out. And maybe the player understands it and says, oh, Sam effed up here. I shouldn't catch this. And maybe we'll get one more.
You don't believe that, do you?
No, I don't. I believe he would have caught it.
He was trying to catch it. He was making every play.
No, that's what I'm saying. I believe he would have caught it, and it would have the clock would have run out. So a lot of things went Washington's way, starting with the penalty. And yeah, you gotta rely on your defense, and your defense didn't hold up their part of the bargain, the complementary football aspect of it. But I would, all I'm saying is personally, if I'm a coach, I pay more lip service to that if there's a great quarterback on the other side. Like, if I give the football back to Patrick Mahomes with 50, I'm not feeling confident. And you don't want to say that to your players either, because you want to say, oh, go out there and stop them. And he didn't even play that well last night against the Jets, who have a good defense. But certain quarterbacks, yeah, I'm going to give more deference to.
Yeah,
Sam Howell's not in that category yet, but he played well.
Understood, but in the moment, Sam Howell was in the midst of having a very good game. Sam Howell's career, you're not going to compare to Patrick Mahomes. You're right; they're two different animals. But on the day when you're making the decision, Sam Howell is in the midst of having a pretty damn good game. So I'm going to give him at least that much credit in making that decision. Do I want to turn the ball back over to a guy who's having a career day? And yeah, I know his career is all of 4 games long, but he's having his best day in the NFL. Do I want to give him the ball back? No, let me run it into the middle of the line, get Jake out there, kick the game-winning field goal, get the hell back into the locker room. That's where I would have handled it.
Yeah, I got to look at the timing. We'll go to break and I'll look at the timing. But they would have
had 2nd and 4. Washington had no timeouts left.
Yeah.
So if
they had to get the first down though. And 3rd and 4. Yeah.
Right. But they take it down to even that much less if they run a couple more plays than how much time Washington.
But you also don't need a touchdown. You only need
need a field goal to tie it. So there was a difference, but you could have run. If you get the first down, you run it down to 0. If you don't get the first down, then it's a little bit closer. If the Eagles offense can't convert on 2nd and 4 with their offensive line, then shame on the Eagles offense. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. We thank Jeff Kurt for hopping in. Had some technical issues today, but he gave us some damn good information, as will our next guest. Yes, it's Game Day Franklin. He will be joining us coming up in about 20 minutes. Keep it right here on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
Johnny Mac and Jody Mac here with you on Birds 365. We got Chris Franklin from NJ.com going to join us day after guy here on Birds 365 coming up in less than 20 minutes from now. Johnny Mac, we've knit and picked the Eagles plenty as they're 4-0. Remember, 4-0. Haven't lost a game yet, but again, not a awe-inspiring victory against the Commanders yesterday, but a victory just the same. Around the league, the other two teams in the NFC did look pretty good. The 49ers were dominant again. I sound like a broken record with this, but at some point, some of the naysayers are going to have to catch up and realize and admit Brock Purdy can play. 20 of 21 yesterday, 20 and 21. And if you want to go along the, it's Kyle Shanahan's offense. Okay.
It's going to be Jonathan Gannon's defense this week. Yeah.
I watched some of that game yesterday. They had a couple of guys who were open, but he throws pinpoint passes. Just because he doesn't have a howitzer attached to his right arm, it doesn't matter how you get it there, just get it there. And he gets it there every single pass. Having Christian McCaffrey also run the football is not a bad thing to keep
catch
defenses honest.
That dude is unbelievable. Christian McCaffrey, man.
He is a stone cold stud. And by the way, you know what I saw yesterday, John, which I couldn't believe. And I meant to look this up after the game, but I was on the air till 10, and then I wanted to watch the end of the Jet game. Deebo Samuel did not touch the football until the fourth quarter yesterday, because he was questionable as to whether he was going to play, and then he was going to be active, and he was. They didn't throw him the ball at all. Ayuk came back, who didn't play the week before, so Purdy's been doing this without two of his main weapons at close to 100%. But Deebo didn't get the ball. They finally ran an end around to him in the early fourth quarter of the game, which I just didn't understand. But the 49ers look good again. And if they beat the Cardinals. Well, yeah, the Cardinals beat the Cowboys the week before. And the Cowboys put a beat down out there last night against the Patriots, a team that the Eagles had to do some work against to just beat. The Lions are going to cakewalk to the NFC North. They've already beaten Green Bay and the other two. Minnesota going to win. Yes, I should give the Vikings a thumb.
Yeah, but they were terrible in a win. They just played a more terrible team. So, yeah, I'm with you. They're going to cakewalk to the NFC North, the Lions. And they're better, I think, than people realize. I thought Green Bay would be a little bit better, but their offensive line is struggling. Justin Fields showed up. Now, where'd that come from?
I put this out on social media on Saturday before my CBS show. I said, who says no to this trade? The Jets send Zach Wilson to the Bears for Justin Fields. The fresh start, clean the slate deal of all time. 2 first-round draft picks that have struggled where they landed.
Who would rather? Yeah, that's a good question. I think if if both teams were being honest, they'd want to move on from each. But they can't be honest, and they both played well yesterday.
That's the point. Yeah, they both played their best game in their careers as soon as I put it out there. So many people make fun of my hypotheticals, but I love my hypotheticals. That was a hypothetical question, hypothetical trade, and sure enough, both of them go out and play their best game ever in their careers.
Yeah. At one point, I checked because I was like, "What the hell's going on?" And the Bears ultimately blew it anyway.
Spit the bag.
But I think they were ahead. I don't know.
28-7.
28-7.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like looking at it at one point, just looking at the box score. He was 12 of 12 at one point, and he had a perfect passer rating. And I said, "Wow, boy, that Denver defense really is bad." And ultimately, they came back to win the game, Denver. But yeah, I mean, these guys have talent. I say it all the time. People pile on Justin Fields. They pile on Zach Wilson. They have talent. Confidence is a crazy thing in this league, because when you lose your confidence and bad things can happen. And I think they've both been in bad situations, Fields and Wilson. I told you, the Eagles love Zach Wilson. So it's not like the Jets were this stupid team that they were the only one that thought Zach Wilson could turn into something. And Justin Fields was a big time prospect as well. And every once in a while you see it, and they happen to both play pretty well on the same day, both in losing efforts, but really close. And the Jets, I mean, it's the Super Bowl champions, and he was better. He was the best quarterback on the field, technically.
Mahomes threw some god-awful passes last night. Some just floating ducks that I couldn't believe. He did not look like Patrick Mahomes. But I will say this in defense of Justin Fields a little bit. At least the Jets play defense. Jets have one of the most talented defenses in the National Football League. Justin Fields has got to play with that Bears defense, which is brutal. And I'm a linebacker guy, and I think the linebackers have been de-emphasized in this league to an egregious level, as a matter of fact. They went out and spent a lot of money on linebackers this offseason, the Bears did. They're not getting results for their dollars. Our guy, Mr. Edwards, not exactly cleaning up that Chicago defense. Their defense is just terrible. They're brutal defense.
No, yeah, and Edwards is, the guy they really spent. Tremaine Edmonds, this guy they really spent the money on. Terrell's brother. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, they have the worst front in football. They have the worst defensive front in football. So it doesn't matter if you have. I always talk about the Eagles building the right way. These other teams, man, it's like the Eagles are playing well. Not their best game, but you pointed out the linebackers played well. No, they didn't. They're playing behind the best front in football, so they have an opportunity. And by the way, that's one of the things.
Well, but then would you say the same thing about Edwards last year? I don't remember you saying that Edwards benefited from playing. You just said that he was as good as he was, one of the best linebackers in football.
There's no doubt that he benefited from playing behind the Eagles' defensive front. There's no doubt. You see it this year. He was the 6th best all-ball linebacker in the league per Pro Football Focus last year. I don't know what he is, down in the 50s this year.
Oh,
yeah,
terrible.
That's the difference between playing behind the best and playing behind the worst. And you see, one of the reasons I think Nicholas Martin, I think it was our buddy Brad Spielberger who said it, And he said, yeah, that's probably right. He didn't sign for any guarantee. He probably could have gotten a small guarantee somewhere else. I don't know that for a fact. But he probably saw an opportunity to go from the worst defensive front in football to the best defensive front in football. And all of a sudden you look better, and who knows, you might get another contract down the line. Now they cut him and they brought him back because of injury, but here he is. He's out there playing, and we're talking about him. He's got 3 sacks. He's making all these tackles. He looks better because he's playing behind that front. And yes, the same thing goes with TJ Edwards, who looks worse because he's playing behind that front in Chicago. But what you say is Edwards plays better than Morrow. So, that's where you sort of grading the scale. TJ's a better player than Nicholas Morrow. But yeah, he's definitely helped by playing the Eagles.
No, if we're talking about what they've done behind the very good Eagles defensive front, and oh, by the way, I don't think the Eagles defensive front was all that good yesterday. I think Morrow's as good, if not better, than TJ Edwards.
Ooh,
I know we're only a couple of games in, but TJ Edwards, please help me with the 3-sack game that TJ Edwards had.
That's again, delayed blitz. TJ didn't blitz a lot. I mean, that's all, that's all dependent. People talk all the time about Jonathan Gannon. For whatever reason.
So the size that much more different than Gannon with his.
Well, he's different. For whatever reason, he ran a lot of delayed blitzes yesterday.
Good thing he did. Those were some of the biggest plays they had.
Not a lot, but yeah, certainly that wouldn't have happened last year. So for people that want to, pile on JG, go ahead, because that probably wouldn't have happened. But I mean, if you don't have the opportunity, and we'll see. I'll see where I don't think he played as well, but I have to look at the game. I haven't rewatched it, but yeah, I don't think that's going to be a high. He was bad in coverage. I don't think that's going to be a high graded game for Morrow. Yeah, okay, but I could be wrong. It's not going to be a bad game, I think. But people say 3 sacks, and they think it's going to be like he's going to be the top graded linebacker. I don't think he played that kind of game.
I thought he played very well, as did Cunningham, who made 13 tackles. But again, because I thought the defensive line didn't play all that well, those tackles were coming downfield. Anytime you get a tackle, put up a tackle, it's a good thing. It looks good in the score sheet. Where did you make the tackle? Did you make the tackle 2 yards?
Now, you know what the most interesting thing to me is, Jody? When Nakobe Dean comes back, and Seth asked me this question on a post-game show. He's like, should Nakobe Dean start? I kind of snickered. I'm snickering here. Yeah, he's going to start. But now, who would you rather have as the number 2 linebacker? Zach Cunningham or Nicholas Morrow? I think Nicholas has put himself in that conversation. I think he deserves to be in that conversation. He hasn't played poorly. I'm not trying to pile on Nicholas Morrow. I think he's helped by playing behind a great front, and he looks better because he's playing behind a great front. That's, I think he's played well.
Yeah, but I think that's the way the Eagles kind of look at it. That's why they got Nicholas Morrow and gave him no money. That's why they were able to pick up Cunningham off the scrap heap weeks into preseason, when every team in the league had months to sign him. They just believe that you can drop in a linebacker behind that defensive line, and anybody can get the job done.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, they're being proven right. Now, I don't think they've played as well as you do. So I think they could value the position a little bit more. And I've said pretty consistently, I think they've taken it too far. And I think Nakobe Dean doesn't have to worry about his job, as some are insisting. He's by far the best linebacker on this team. And I think that remains true. Now I have questions about durability issues. I think those are real with Nakobe, but yeah, I got to ask that question. I was a little taken aback by Seth asking me that question. Like, is Cunningham and Nicholas Morrow going to take Nakobe Jean's job? I mean, no, no, no.
Do you think that they'll use a more 3 rotational guy though? That they'll play all of them, or do you think one of them is going to be the odd man out, whoever it is? And Seth thinks it could be Nakobe Dean. You think it could be someone else? Do you think that there's any chance that it's kind of a rotational thing and all of their snaps are similar?
No, I don't. I think, well, Nakobe's going to be the guy, and then it's a matter of who the weak side guy is next to him. Zach, Nicholas is chasing Zach for that job. Now, if they were different types of players, but their weaknesses probably coverage. And Zach is probably better equipped long term because he's long. And at least he can, very smart player, at least he can get his long arms in the way of the occasional throw. So I still think he's probably going to end up on top. But I think it's fair to say that Nicholas Morrow has opened up that conversation. Will he be a better option than Zach Cunningham? But yeah, I think Nakobe is still the guy.
As do I, but Nakobe better hit the ground running, come back in and be playing well. Otherwise, the Eagles with their linebacker play for me yesterday made it a viable, questionable conversation. I got no. If I were in your spot and Seth was asking me that question, yes, I would have said that's a fair question. I think Nakobe gets plugged right back in as soon as he's ready to go, but he better play to a specific level. Otherwise, they may be flexible. I don't think Nakobe gets that job and they he's locked in for that position for the rest of the year. I think he's actually got to play to keep his job. The other linebackers, all 3 of them, putting some pressure on each other. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are the Mac Birds 365 guys. Scheduled to join us next, Chris Franklin from NJ.com usually comes on the day after an Eagle game. The undefeated Eagles. Keep telling yourself that, Eagle fans. The undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. We'll come back and talk to Chris Franklin next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Birds 365, day after Eagle victory. With John McMullen, I'm Jody McDonald. Joining us is our boy, Chris Franklin from NJ.com. And in the background, we got the T for Trenton. Remember, Trenton makes, the world takes. So we thank Chris for hopping. What, you never heard that before?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I'm actually in Mullica Hill. I'm in the South Jersey Times team. I'm down in Mullica Hill.
Jersey Times. Why did I think the T was for Trenton?
Yeah,
I write for there too, but it shows up in there. But yeah, this is the T from the old Gloucester Times building. So that's what they took it from there.
County Times.
I thought it was T for Trenton. My bad. But no birds, which kind of stinks. With the only birds are me and McMullen, Eagle birds, not the Franklin birds in the backyard. So glad you're inside in front of a T, whatever the hell it stands for. Could T stand for timeout? Yeah, Jody, keep talking about the undefeated Eagles, but they really could have lost that game. If Riverboat Rod had them hanging and went for a 2-point conversion and converted, Philadelphia Eagles lose that game yesterday. How do you look at the game, Chris Franklin?
They did luck out, I think, in that aspect. I was surprised they really didn't go for two because I think they had all the momentum on their side. It looked like the defense was a little bit shell-shocked at the end. They're gassed. They were having that whole entire drive with it going down the field like that. I really thought they should have gone for two, and I thought it was a very good chance that they could have, but especially the way they were actually getting timely runs. They weren't just the Commanders weren't just like basically going down the field and ramming the ball down the throw times, but when they needed the first down, they were able to get it. So I put that loss was that loss was all on Ron Rivera, in my opinion, for the Commanders.
Yeah, I would have went for it, and but I if I could rip it off as like an old school military uniform, that nickname, I'd rip it off Ron Rivera. I'd rip off Riverboat. Can't call him that anymore.
Nope.
That's embarrassing. You got to try to steal that game. But since we're Birds 365, I want to talk about the Eagles coaching staff and their decision. So 2nd and 4 from the Washington 28, 149 left. The Commanders have one timeout. Jalen Hurts, I believe, checked to that on his own. Touchdown to A.J. Brown. Should they have just run the ball and whittled the time off and said, all right, let's get out of here with the Jake Elliott field goal? Where are you on how they handled that situation?
I would have done the same thing personally. And the reason why I would have done that is because I think when you look at what you have on this defense and you expect them to be able to make a stop, especially against Sam Howell, they weren't able to do that, which was
Did
a little
you
concerning.
watch the first 59 minutes of the game?
Sam Howell
moved it pretty damn well against the defense, and you're praising here, Chris Franklin.
Hey, I'm looking at it. When it comes to Sam Howell, I still think that the Eagles made him look a little bit better than what he really was. But I think when he come down to that last drive, he should have been that last drive should never happen. They should have been able to stop him a couple times. And I look at that and I'm just like, it's concerning to me, especially if this was, say, the Dolphins, if this is the Bills or something else, we're talking about a loss here. So I don't have a problem with them going for a touchdown because that defense should have stopped them. You should have confidence in your defense with all those.
And
names
AJ shouldn't get the taunting penalty to make things easier.
That was the bigger key, yeah, because then you got to push them back. Yeah, that probably would another 5, 10, like 2 or 3 plays they would have had to run to even get down to the end zone. So yeah, that was all I have.
Yeah. Now, when you talk about that particular sort of aspect, and then you get to overtime, I thought two things. I thought at the end of regulation, it was pretty clear that after Sam Howell realized his mistake and threw short of the end zone, either Eric Bieniemy got in his ear or whatever, and said, this has got to go to the end zone. And it's pretty clearly Washington was looking at, all right, wherever Josh Jobe is, that's where the ball's going. And it was a heck of a throw. It wasn't like it was terrible coverage. It was a good throw by Sam Howell. Long term, though, Chris, they got to fix this secondary, don't they? You can't keep piecemealing with James Bradbury in the slot. I don't think that's going to work.
I think you may have to go back to having Bradbury just go outside, like, because he's just too valuable right now. I understand if it was more of a short term thing, yeah, I get this, but more and more you're starting to see it now. Or have the guy who's more familiar with it in the middle. I don't know. I keep hearing like Ringo playing safety and stuff like that, and moving him possibly in there. I mean, you hear other guys. Sidney Brown was in there beforehand and everything else. Yeah, I think you just need to change it up. So you got to change things up because teams are just going to continually to pick them apart, and it's going. And I look at Joe; he's done well at times. You see the physicality, and you see where he can become. But they're picking on him right now, and teams are going to continue to pick on him, knowing that, see, do I go Darius Slay or go Josh Jobe? I want to go Josh over all those times.
I want to get your take on this, John. I debated it a little bit here for the first hour and changed the show. Acknowledging ahead of time, one affects the other. The defensive line affects the linebackers. Linebackers affect the safety. The safeties and the D-backs are affected by the defensive line and the pressure. We get it. Across the every single game, every single play, 11 guys are there as a unit, but we break them down into separate units on top of it. If you stand alone and not acknowledge and or hold it against other units as to how they played, secondary linebackers, Eagles defensive line, rank the way that they played for you yesterday, 1, 2, and 3.
I look at the linebackers as one. I think Nick Morrow, the way that he stood out, the way he stepped up since coming back, I look at him. I think that was good. Defensive line probably be number 2, and the secondary would be 3. And I look at the way the defensive line did. They got pressure, but it looked like it was uncontrolled pressure at times, where you expected you expected like the D tackles sometimes to not let them to open up that hole in the middle, and the ends lost contained in there as well too. They weren't able to they should have had at least 2 or 3 more sacks they wound up with. So I look at that, and then the secondary overall, I just look at that, especially on the back end. I thought there's too many issues that were going on in there, and I mean, Terry McLaurin's a really good receiver. Jahan Dotson is an up and coming one, but there are guys that you should be able to contain.
Here's why I say the defensive line was worse than the secondary yesterday. I'm grading on a curve because the defense secondary is down. How many guys? No Brown yesterday, no Maddox yesterday, no Evans yesterday. So they're missing 3 key components going into the game. Who was the defensive line missing? Nobody. And, oh, by the way, the Eagles defensive line is supposed to be the best unit in all of football. And they didn't play like it yesterday. So if you factor in grading on a curve as per expectations, I actually thought their defensive line was the weakest unit they had.
Fair point. But at the same time, I look at them. I look at the way that they were trying to, the way they were trying to tackle them. I don't know. I don't put some. I think it's just more. It was more of a discipline when it came to the rush. I think that was the main thing. That was the main thing I looked at. I took away from that. And the secondary part, I get what you're saying, especially with not having Brown in there. It's some issues, but you still look at the guys they have in there, and they're still talented enough to beat this. The Eagles secondary, talent wise, is better than Washington Commanders. They didn't play like it yesterday, though. They really didn't.
All right, let's talk about those linebackers, Chris. Middle split the difference. And Nick Morrow, man, playing well. He gets the safety in Tampa. He's got 3 sacks. I looked it up. He had 3,600 career snaps, had 4 coming into that game, gets 3 in this game. Seth Joyner, who knows a little bit about linebacker play, asked me on our post-game show, and I admit I was taken aback. Is he playing well enough to usurp Nakobe Dean? I said, no way. No way, Seth. Is he playing well enough to keep himself in this lineup?
I think he is, in the fact that he'd be good on third downs. I think Dean's supposedly is supposed to be their 3-down linebacker, but the way he's playing right now, I'd probably, when Dean comes back, play him first and second downs and runs, get the set in defense, and then bring Morrow in a third down, because he gives you that ability not only to rush the passer if you want to blitz him, but also still be able to cover sideline to sideline and still be effective in doing that. So I don't think he should be the full-time starter when he comes back, but I think there's ways they should be able to incorporate him into that defense, because his skill set, it lends itself to do pretty well, and I think he plays well with Cunningham. I just think he does.
All right, even in a game that they had to win in overtime, I think a lot of Eagle fans' fears were allayed a little bit, because Jalen Hurts threw the football really well yesterday. What happened to the passing game? Great job, Swift, but we used to be able to throw the ball for 300 yards every single week. He threw it for 300 yards yesterday. So I'm here to sing Jalen Hurts' praises, except for one aspect, and that's his running the football. I had one thing of beauty, 24-yard run, looked like the Jalen of last year, but he also had a couple of plays where he's sliding and not getting first downs. The tush push is still great, I get it, but it seems like the running game of his, the RPO game, is the coordinator just going more RPO runs, or is Jalen just not taking the ball back and keeping it himself more? He has not been uber impressive. Part of what made him the MVP runner-up last year was his ability to make plays with his legs. Has not been a big factor in the first 4 weeks for the Eagles. Why?
When he looks at the zone read part of it, I think it's just the way they're forcing him to give the ball up. They're like the way they're trying to play the read. They rather try to get in the middle, which to me, I was like, okay, why are you forcing me to get the ball to DeAndre Swift the way he's running right now?
Yeah.
That's not on that one. But I also think it just looks like he's trying to make a more conservative attempt to just slide and everything. And I don't know I don't know if it was told that, hey, protect yourself more. Hey, we need you around for the full season, but that around the corner just not as effective. It's not that same spark that he had last year and getting around the corner. And I understand sliding more to protect yourself, but it's something. It's part schematic that they want to get forced out on, but also when it comes to him running, it's off right now. It truly isn't. I don't know. I don't think you need to run quarterback sweeps like you've run the old student body and just have them do that, but it's a little off.
Yeah, it is a little bit off, and I think you're right. I think opposing, certainly in the first 3 weeks, I mean, there was a clear sort of game plan from all three of those guys to say, all right, we're not going to let Jalen Hurts beat us in the running game, and we'll see if that continues. Now, in the before times, we used to say this was the quarter pole of the season. We can't say that anymore. Just stupid 17 games.
Odd games.
Nonetheless, Chris, in the passing game, which, I think Jody's right. I think everybody breathes a sigh of relief. AJ's just beaten up on poor Emmanuel Forbes. Devontae Smith making big plays again. They can't get Dallas Goedert involved. This is 4 games now. At what point do we press the panic button there?
All they're trying to do is take away the middle of the field. Defenses are really trying to take away that middle of the field. And it's coming to the point where now you feel like you have to almost force him to get, if you take him touches, you have to run tight end screens and little slants when he's running a slot, because they're just compounding everything in the middle, because they used to be so effective when it comes to those crossing routes, those meshes and everything else, that teams are like, you ain't beating us with that because you're not getting ahead of steam on that. So we want you to go vertical, and they're doing it, stopping away from the middle. So unless you start trying to change stuff where you put maybe Brown or Smith in the slot more, and you have him on the outside, try to get a matchup at corner, which to me, I'm not the biggest fan for him for doing that, but you may have to do that to at least try to get him some targets. So, but at least if they don't get anything done, especially against his Rams defense, and then in the next couple against the Jets eventually too, I'm really going to start ringing the alarm.
All right, both of you guys were there yesterday, so I don't know if you actually saw it, but it was well reported. Cam Jurgens leaves in a walking boot after the game. He went out close to half. I know Suopeta took 60+% of the snaps yesterday, and as far as I could tell, did a nice job. No difference for me in watching the game. Wow, Jurgens is out. They got a hole on the
I thought they played
line.
better actually when Sua came in, but I thought he held up pretty well.
Is he the unquestioned guy being plugged in there? Because all we talked about in preseason was, well, is it going to be Jurgens or Tyler Steen? Jurgens or Tyler Steen? Well, yesterday, Tyler Steen inactive. Opeta up, steps in, plays well. If Jurgens is going to miss some time, is it a given that Opeta's the new right guard?
I think so. Because and to me, I would be shocked because if you asked me before the season, I probably thought Jack Driscoll probably would have been that guy, but he looks more to be the backup swing tackle now. But I like the way that Opeta came in and stepped up. I'm shocked, and I got to give him credit because when you look at what in previous years when he would come in, the pass blocking was the biggest question you had about him because he always would get beat inside that, and then he's fixed it. At least he did this week, and I think he did a lot better. And I think he's warranted the chance to be able to start. Now it's going to be like one of those. Hey, welcome! Congratulations, you get to start. Here's Aaron Donald. Enjoy. Which is going to be.
I hadn't thought that far in advance. You had to bring that up, Chris Franklin.
So he'll be really tested. They'll probably give him help. I mean, you have to give him help because you don't want him to get that much. You have to give him help because Aaron Donald is that good of a player. But for at least for him being able to step in the way he played technique wise, and he was, pardon the pun, but he was very stout.
Now you mentioned, and you're right. I mean, it's and how people overreact. Whomever, Tyler Steen, Jack Driscoll, Suopeta, Cam Jurgens, insert name, Zach Martin. They're going to have trouble against Aaron Donald. That's how good Aaron Donald is. So it's not necessarily about this week for me. But long term, you know how this works, Chris. You got a plan coming into the game. And you mentioned Jack Driscoll. Well, he's the swing tackle coming in. Tyler Steen isn't active. Now you get to prepare. You can have these conversations. Well, is Jack the better way to go? Is Tyler the better way to go? Or is Sua the better? Do you think they seriously consider a different route than Suopeta, or no? That's just the way we're going to go.
I think that's going to be the way they. The only other one I'd want to be Jack. That's it. Tyler Steen to me is still a little too green, and I think he looked better in the fact that he was getting a lot more snaps at the tackle spot during training.
Better
camp.
Left tackle. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's still green. He's still learning that right guard position. So the only other person I could see taking that over would be Jack Driscoll. But even then, the fact that they threw in Opeta right away. Usually it used to be automatic. Up's coming in. Jack, you go out there now. But the fact that Opeta has played himself into that role, I think he's the one.
By the way, I didn't think about that, but I saw Cam after the game, and I saw him in the walking booth. You didn't think you saw Aaron Donald on the schedule and say, let me put on this one. That's the best case scenario. I'm joking, by the way.
Cough. Oh, no, I had the flu. No, Cam's one of those gamers, man. He wouldn't do that, but the timing stinks for him. I know that.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, there was a story floating around after the game yesterday that Derek Barnett's agent is lobbying for the flexibility to check out if there's a trade available for Derek Barnett at this stage as we head toward the trade deadline. Just strike my memory a little bit here. Haven't we gone down this road? Didn't the Eagles grant Derek Barnett and his agents any trade for him prior to the start of the season before they cut the roster down? And they found nothing. Let's see. What has Derek Barnett done through 4 games? Nothing. So why would there now be a trade market for Derek Barnett? Is this just a complete agent-created story?
Especially with the necessity. It's hard to believe we're only a few weeks away from the trade deadline. So with these teams, as we've seen the attrition that's happening around the league with some of these injuries, Is he going to be one of the top names? I don't think he will. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm saying
names.
I don't think he will at all.
I know. From the Eagles, I'm going to ask for 6 oranges. I'm going to settle for 3. That's what I would trade Derek Barnett.
It's one of those things.
I still maintain they will get a late round pick for Derek Barnett. There are so many bad defensive lines out there. Somebody will pull the trigger if the Eagles want to move on.
I think he's on his roster. I think he stays. He's going to stay, and it's I understand it's frustrating, but you got to play your way in, especially with the this defensive line is deep, and I know he's got a lot of incentives that he has to hit, but it's just going to be tough to hit him the way that everybody's rolling through it now.
No, yeah. By the way, we were discussing that a little bit. I was not as disappointed in the defensive front as others when you look at it individually. Not Derek, but I thought Brandon Graham played well. I thought Jalen Carter still impacted the game, even though it wasn't on the stat sheet. Hassan Reddick finally got home. I thought Josh Sweat had a nice bounce back from the Tristan Wirfs game, who's a really good player. Why did it not manifest itself on the stat sheet? Or do you think
or
they
the scoreboard? The Commanders put up 31 points. You got to factor that in too.
I thought that the one thing I didn't understand what Bieniemy was doing. I thought it was working well early on, getting the ball out to the flats and getting the ball quickly. And we saw that, especially with a quarterback who stays in there, who's been hit a lot already and been sacked a lot. I think it was just a matter of the lack of contain. It was a lack of contain, lack of discipline in the rush lanes, and lack of discipline on the outside. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I'm seeing a sack, I know, because given how much you get paid for sacks and the bonuses and everything else, yeah, I'd go for it too. I'd try to run it out, but it just looks like they all going and they forgot. He just stepped up, made one move, and just eluded them. And actually, if you had everybody else on their man,
he can move. Sam Howell, he can move. I was impressed by Sam Howell. I give Ed Kratz credit for that one. He was on ground floor of Team Sam Howell. I was pretty impressed. I think he's got a chance to be a pretty good quarterback.
All right,
and I thought he had a nice.
Let me get you on the record here, Johnny Mac. Both you and Ed Kratz, and we'll have Ed Kratz on next week. Who does Washington play this upcoming week?
I don't
look it up real quick.
I think they're Thursday, aren't? Are they against the Bears on Thursday?
I know the Bears play Thursday. You're right about that. Let me punch up.
Yep, Bears Commanders. Yep.
Yeah, Bears Commanders. All right. So against that god awful Bears defense, and I watched a little of it yesterday. They're terrible. TJ Edwards et al. Are just awful. Sam Howell going for 300 next week. He's gonna go back to back. He should be, if he is this new found star quarterback in the league.
I didn't say it was a star. I said he's got a chance. I was pretty impressed with him. But yeah, I mean, why not? Bears are terrible. Yeah,
they're a dumpster fire.
I got 275. I'll put it. I'll put it at 275. 300's tough. They might be able. You know why, Jody? I go a little bit lower because they'll probably be able to run the ball against Chicago as well. So
you can pick and choose the way you want to move the ball against.
Yeah, exactly. You can do whatever you want. So that might affect the passing game. Oh, but we should bring Terry McLaurin. What? Did the Eagles get helped out by the lack of primetime extra video? Or was that the greatest, the best play of Marcus Mariota, his head getting in the way of the one angle, helping the Eagles win? Where are you on the Terry McLaurin catch in overtime or non-catch?
I had no problem with it. It was. They benefited from that, surely. I thought personally it was a catch, but
so did
I thought it was a catch. And
caught it.
The fact is, it was like, okay, all right, whatever. That was but I thought it was a catch. And so overall, he just kills his team every year in and year out. He's that good of a wide receiver, and I just feel bad. I feel bad for him in a way that he hasn't had a legitimate quarterback that he could build real chemistry with. Maybe that's with how he does that now. But if you look at Bieniemy's offenses, and I forget who I was talking to about this. I forget who I talked about this. Maybe it's Slay. Somebody else said when you look at Bieniemy's offenses, he usually has that one guy that he goes to. Like it was Tyreek Hill when he was in with the Chiefs. It was like it's like Tyreek Hill with the Chiefs, and they usually have that one guy. He could turn into he's not this burner that Hill is, but he can be an effective wide receiver in the system. And I said this before the season, I really think they could be a 7 seed and sneak in if they get on a run. They're that good of a team. It's just the Eagles should have dominated more than what they had. It should have never been this close because the Eagles should be a 1 seed or 2 seed, and you shouldn't be that close with a 7 seed, especially this early in the season.
With revenge on their mind because Washington beat them in their house last year. What's the record of Jalen Hurts as a starter, John, in the regular season?
Well, his overall record, I don't have it. He's 21 of the past 22 they've won.
21-1.
He's got the best. He's got the best record for a starting quarterback since 2021. So even if you go the whole season,
and that one regular season loss was to the Commanders last year at Lincoln Financial Field. So the Eagles should have been playing with revenge on their mind yesterday. They sneak out with a victory just the same. I'll give them their props for getting to 4-0. But you remind me, Aaron Donald on the offing next week. Yes, it's going to be on Jason Kelsey and whoever they decide to plug in there. Any other feelings with that? You gonna stay up nights watching film on Puka Nacua, the new star wide receiver?
You have to.
There for 500 yards in 4 weeks.
And you're getting Cooper Kupp supposedly coming back as well too next week. So the secondary better get stuff together right away because the two of them it's not a flashy offense, but it's one of those things where
Kupp is coming back. Is that official or is he just?
I was watching last night. They said that they expect him to play. It's not official yet, but they expect him to play next week. So he's getting closer and closer. And if he plays, he shouldn't be gangbusters right off the bat, but he can be if he's even effective enough. This game could be because we could be watching another close game.
Evidently, Matthew Stafford got pretty dinged up in the game yesterday. So
like a hip flex or some pointer or something like that. Yeah. Which for the Eagles, thankfully, is not a mobile quarterback. At least you know with him, he's pretty much going to be stationary for the most part. So that should help the defensive line at least.
Yeah, but he can sling it, man. He's going to go if he's healthy. He's going to go after Josh Jobe. There's going to be a target, and he's got, especially if Kupp is out there, he's got a few targets. This could be a more difficult game than people realize for the Eagles if Matthew Stafford's healthy, and that's a big if. We'll have to see as the week goes on. I'll leave it here with you at C Franklin News. Make sure you follow Chris. Does a tremendous job all over the Trenton Times as well. All over South Jersey.
For Trenton.
NJ.com. T for Gloucester Township. Is it Gloucester Township?
It was the Gloucester County Times.
Gloucester Times.
Home of the Rupert Franks. There you
go. Jake Elliott. We got to talk about Jake. The MVP of the Philadelphia Eagles, Jake Elliott. I saw him kick a 72-yard field goal in practice last week. 54. When he was trotting on the field, any doubt that Jake Elliott was making that field goal? Because I was like, this game's over.
No, I thought he's one of those guys where you just go, you know what? Yeah, especially if it's. I'd probably be more worried if it was like 40-41. Just because what happens in the past beforehand, where it seems like he used to hook it, but now back from 50 plus, it's like, yeah, I got no problem. The only time I start to try worry is like if he's trying to kick a 65 in the hole, and that's where like, all right, maybe that's his range. But he's shown like when you watch him pregame, it's crazy because you're looking like, oh, I can't make this one, especially in that one end of the end zone. That's
5'9", 167, and he's yeah. It's amazing.
And the fact he kicked that into the tougher end because it's tougher to kick towards that end of the stadium than the other one, just because of that one too. The fact he was able to get it with that much leg, the guy is good, and he's when you look at all the figures.
Now I asked Jake that because I always get mixed up. I asked Jake that after the game. he said that way's the easier way because it's closed. It's closed. It's enclosed. Whereas the side of the stadium pointed towards Center City is open, and there's more swirl. There's more opportunities for swirling winds. That's his thought process.
I believe that. Yeah, it seems like every time he goes down that way, he's had the issues. I'm like, what the heck's this kid? I just don't understand. Like, how do you walk in knowing that everybody and their mom's watching you? You're trying to get in. Oh yeah, if you don't make this kick, we're going to probably tie the Commanders, which we're always go at. He just comes in every single pressure situation. It's just he bails, he knocks them in.
My only concern was that if they had missed the field goal, my concern was actually for Braden Mann because he was going to get blamed for it. The hold was going to get if he didn't make that kick yet, it was going to be on the holder. Kind of like if Chris Franklin does a bad job recapping the game, he does so because he's worried John McMullen's going to spill coffee on him. That at some point you just got to put it where it belongs on the actual individual. But with
by the way, Braden Mann, he's the exact same as Aaron Cepas. He can't punt, but he's a good holder.
He had that one. He had that one punt that was decent.
Yeah,
but like there was another one. The first one was like, here we go
get
again.
A lot of hang time. He does not.
He had the one nice punt. He did have one good punt and two not so good punts.
And that was his thing. He was supposed to come in and give better hang time, and it happened so far.
Not so far. Chris Franklin, thank you very much for coming in with us today. Tell Gloucester Times, tell Trenton Times, tell your birds we said hi. Thank you much for jumping in with us today, big guy.
Thanks.
Thanks. I'll pass the messages along. Thanks.
Here with us on Birds 365. All right, got to come back, put a bow on the show. Last segment of Birds 365. Hey, before you go, I know you're going to run out of here. Hit that like button. Give us a little love. Hey, much like the Eagles, Mac, well, that would be just flat out BS. I don't know that we're undefeated, but we're here for you every day at least, right? We show up. We show up every single day.
That's
and
right.
We'll come back and we'll put a bow on the show.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. E-A-G-L-E-S. Eagles.
Mac and Mac guys, here on Bird 365. Gonna put the bow on the show. Sirianni availability today? What time?
1-ish on Zoom, not
Zoom
live.
For Sirianni at 1 o'clock. We heard him yesterday after the game. I'm sure there are more things that you guys can get into today. And then Monday Night Football actually matters to Eagles fans tonight because it is an NFC East team in action. That would be the Giants hosting the Seahawks. That was my best bet of the weekend, as a matter of fact. I think the Seahawks are going in there winning by at least a touchdown, if not double-digit points. And they're only a 1.5 favorite, Johnny Mac. They get Adams back this week. I still say Seattle is got a chance to, by the end of the year, be considered right there with the Lions and the Cowboys as the third best team behind the Eagles and the 49ers. You think Giants can pull an upset tonight?
Yeah, I do. I think Seattle. I'm with you. A better team. You know, I don't think the Giants are very good, but this league, you know, was so herky jerky from week to week. I think the Giants are almost due for a decent performance. They can't be. I didn't think they were this bad the way they played early in the season. They have good players. I say that about every NFL team. You know, every team has really good players, and they at some point they have to play a little bit better.
Who are the Giants' really good players right now?
Well, Saquon, who's obviously injured. Dexter Lawrence is a tremendous player. They have their defense and their defensive front as a whole is pretty good. Kayvon Thibodeau hasn't played well. At some point, it's got to click in for him. He's too talented. Williams. I mean, they have Xavier McKinney's a really good player. Offensively, Darren Waller. I'm not in love with their offensive line, but Andrew Thomas has turned into a good player. The receivers, I'm not in love with. And I'm not a big Daniel Jones fan. I don't think they're a good team, but I don't think they're as bad as the way they played early in the season.
My Eagles Commanders prediction was 30-17, right along with our buddy Damo, who made the pick on Friday before I did. And I looked at my sheets, got the same exact score that I did. All right. It didn't turn out 30-17. The Commanders scored more points than I thought they were going to. But I like that score. So I'll give you the same exact score tonight. Seattle goes into New York and beats the Giants 30-17. I think the Giants.
I just got a feeling they're going to play a little bit better. But they play.
They should. A primetime game in their house. It should be. That's the reason why it's only a 1.5.
They played so poorly. I don't blame anyone for not believing in them. And I'm one of the ones who said they didn't self-evaluate well because they thought they were better than they really are, but they're not this bad. I got to believe something clicks at some point.
No, here's what I see from the Giants. They played 3 games, which is 6 halves. They played 1 good half so far. Out of 6.
I know. It's been awful.
The second half against Arizona, they came back, won the game, give them credit because it's a W, but they weren't good.
Oh, they're in the conversation for being the worst team in football early in the season. That's how bad they've been. And as a matter of fact, I know we got to go. I want to look real quick. And they haven't put the new grades up for this week. But coming into this week, PFF has them 32 of 32, worse than Denver. That's how poorly they played.
And for those who want to say, yeah, but they lost to Dallas and San Francisco, I'm telling you, tonight they're playing Seattle. And I think Seattle's that good. My prediction, my selection has more to do with thinking Seattle is that good than the Giants are the worst team in football. I don't think they're the worst team in football. I think they're in the bottom 10, and that makes
I think they might. They're certainly in the bottom 5. They have them dead last. They're certainly in the bottom 5 right now, but I don't think they're a bottom 5 team. I think you're right. They're a bottom 10 team.
Right. And that should be enough for Seattle to get a at least touchdown, if not double-digit win tonight, which means the Giants will be 1-3. And we'll talk about that tomorrow after we get the results of tonight's game. Johnny Mac will be on the Zoom with Coach Sirianni today, and we'll dissect some of the things he has to say. And good on Chris Franklin for reminding us what that Aaron Donald guy's coming up on Sunday. I hadn't done the look-ahead thing.
Yeah, that's some bad luck, by the way, to lose one of your starting guards the same week Aaron Donald shows up. Yeah, and the injuries have been tougher this year. But what did we say to start the show? We'll say at the end it, Jody. 4-0.
Don't forget that they are 4-0, and that Suop had a living up to that Tesla stock quote of Jason Kelsey. He played well, filled in, didn't even notice there was an injury on the offensive line. He's going to have to be Tesla-like against Aaron Donald on Sunday. But that we got all week to talk about that. We will start it tomorrow, 22 hours from now. Johnny Mac, Jody Mac, back in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.